Okay, so let's learn how to play Rot. Now, this is set up for one player, and this is pretty much how your game board's going to look like anyway. Over here, you're going to have your progress tracker, which has the party health tracker attached to it. This is your party pawn. I have it on the one player start right now. Up here, you're going to have your enemy cards, your item cards, and your trinket. So today I'm going to be playing the Firestoker, one of the 8 characters in the game. We're going to look at their stats, and then I'm going to run through a few turns of gameplay just to show you how it works. This is the front of the board, which features the art and some important information about the character. The Firestoker has 4 health, which corresponds to the maximum health and current health cubes on the health tracker over here. The Firestoker has 4 core dice, which is how many dice they can roll no matter what on their turn. It's the bare minimum. And the Firestoker has a hand limit of 3, which is how many items they can hold in their hand at one time. If we take a look at the back of the board, we can find the character's passive and dice gain. The Firestoker has one passive called Auto Cauterization, which allows them to heal at the beginning of each of their turns. And then they gain dice through thermoconcussive plating, which gives them 1 die each time the party is damaged. Now, the amount of dice you'll roll on your turn is equal to your character's core dice, plus however many dice you have gained, and you can keep track of the dice you have gained using this red cube on the slider here. So we will set that to 0 for now. And the final bit of preparation we need to do is to draw a random trinket, and I've drawn the scaled bell, which will allow me to draw 1 item for every 2 unsuccessful dice I roll on the first roll of my turn. This applies for the entire game and would also apply to every member of the party if there are more players than just me. So now we are ready to begin, and I'm going to start my turn, as I will every turn, by drawing an enemy card and adding it to the enemy wave. The enemy wave is always going to be 3 rows deep, and it will have as many columns as there are players playing. So in this case, just 1. The maximum enemy wave will be 1 column, 3 rows deep. Okay, so I've drawn a walking fungus, and I can see here that the walking fungus has 3 health and will hit on a 2 or a 4. I can also see that the walking fungus is worth a refresh, which is good to keep in mind. That symbol will match the symbol on the back of either one of my abilities here, and it will let me refresh either ability if I choose to use them during the game. So now I will roll my dice, and I roll 4 dice, as that's the Firestoker's core dice. Full disclosure, these are my prototyping dice. These are not the dice that are going to come with the game. And dice are going to be either pass or fail. 1s and 2s are considered failures. Everything else is a pass and will go on this dice path. So let me roll here. Okay, so not too bad. We got 3 successes and 1 failure. And the failure here is a 2. It's blacked out, but let me just go ahead and put that to the side. Now, unfortunately, 1 failure isn't enough to use the scaled bell, but I can go ahead and put my dice onto my dice path here. I can play a red space to do 1 damage. Unfortunately, this next space is a null space. I won't be able to do anything with that, but my third dice can play a red space again to deal a 2nd damage to the walking fungus. So now I can decide if I want to burn Incinerate here, and I don't think I want to right now. Even though I will get a refresh from that fungus, Incinerate lets me deal damage to all enemies in a row or column. It just seems like a waste right now because there's only 1 enemy on the field. I'm going to keep that damage for a later date. And that's everything I want to do. So that's going to end the player phase and start the enemy phase. And what happens during the enemy phase is you roll the enemy dice. Now, you will always roll enemy dice equal to the number of players plus 1. And when you roll, if any of the numbers on the first row enemy cards match the rolled numbers, they deal damage to the party. So let's go ahead and see. And it looks like they don't roll any matches, so we take no damage here. And now, since there are no slain enemies in the front row, that concludes 1 turn of play. So we'll go ahead and start another turn here. And let me draw another enemy card and add it to the wave. And it's the Not Children. So the Not Children, we can see here, have 4 health. They will hit on a 1, a 2, or a 5, and they have an ability that lets them attack from row 2 or 3. I can also see that they are worth either an ability refresh or a progress, which is good to keep in mind because progress is how you advance on the tracker and win the game. So let me gather up my dice here, and remember we're still rolling 4 dice because I haven't gained any through damage, and let's see, alright, so Looks like we have 2 successes and 2 failures. Now these 2 failures allow me to use my scaled bell and draw an item, and I got a sea drinker eye, which will allow me to slide 1 die 1 space. Let's put these aside here. And now before I use these successful dice, I'm going to choose to use Incinerate and deal 1 damage to each enemy in that column. So I'm going to flip this over here to mark it as used, and I'm going to put 1 damage token on each enemy, which is actually enough to kill the walking fungus. So I'm going to take these off and flip it over to mark the fungus as slain. So now I'll return to my successful dice, and I'll go ahead and play them on my dice path, dealing 1 damage with this first die here. And let me just put that on the children. And then the second die I have to play on this null space, but I can use my Sea Drinker eye to slide this die 1 space to deal damage again to the not children. And now that's everything that I can do during the player phase, so it'll go ahead and be the enemy phase next, and we will roll our enemy dice. Now normally we wouldn't because everything in the front row is dead, but the not children's ability allows them to attack, so we have to roll here. And we got a 3 and a 5, which matches one of their spaces, and that will deal 1 damage to the party. So now we go into what is called the loot phase, and if there are any slain enemies in the first row, we loot them. And you can see on the top right corner what each enemy is worth. So the walking fungus, as I mentioned earlier, is worth a refresh. So I will put the walking fungus up here in the discards, and then I will use that refresh to refresh Incinerate, and then the not children slide down to row 1. And that's it. That is generally the flow of the game. You will either get your character pawn by looting progress from enemies to the final space on the game tracker, or your health will be reduced to 0 from enemy damage. Well, that covers all of the basics, so good luck.